Christmas Eve, the city blanketed in fresh snow. Natasha Reed, 30-year-old CEO of Tech Vision, stood alone in her penthouse apartment overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. The panoramic windows framed a perfect winter postcard. Streets transformed into white ribbons, buildings twinkling with holiday lights, countless windows glowing with family gatherings. Everyone had somewhere to belong tonight. Everyone except her. Her reflection stared back. Perfectly tailored black dress, carefully applied, makeup hair pulled into a precise chignon. A CEO even on Christmas Eve. Her phone vibrated against the marble countertop, her mother's name illuminating the screen. Natasha's stomach tightened as she answered. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. The airport shut down completely. This snowstorm has grounded every flight heading your way. I've tried everything, but there's no way I'll make it tonight." Her mother's voice cracked with genuine disappointment. Natasha maintained her composure, the same tone she used when quarterly projections fell short. "It's fine, Mom, I understand. Safety first. We'll reschedule." She glanced at the dining table set for two with fine china and crystal glasses that would now be packed away unused. Once alone again, Natasha stared at the elegant spread of catered food she'd ordered. The sight of it, enough for two, now excessive for one, crystallized the emptiness around her. 12,000 square feet of premium real estate and nowhere to hide from the solitude. This was her choice, her deliberately constructed life. Success measured in acquisitions and valuations, not holiday gatherings or family photos. The penthouse felt suffocating suddenly. Without conscious decision, she grabbed her cashmere coat and designer boots. Her reflection in the elevator's polished doors looked foreign to her, a woman who had everything and no one to share it with. The doorman's surprised expression as she crossed the marble lobby confirmed how unusual her departure was. "Miss Reed, everything all right? You're heading out on Christmas Eve. Just need some air, Thomas. The storm's let up. They're saying it'll pick up again after midnight, ma'am. Be careful out there." The cold air struck her face with cleansing sharpness as she stepped outside. Christmas lights refracted through snowflakes, creating miniature prisms. Natasha had no destination in mind, only the need to escape the silence of success. Her Maserati responded with purring precision as she navigated the unusually empty downtown streets. She found herself heading toward Michigan Avenue, where a few high-end stores might still be open for desperate last-minute shoppers. Perhaps she could find something special for her mother when she eventually visited, an excuse she recognized to not be alone with her thoughts for a few more hours. A small shopping plaza several blocks from her usual haunts remained illuminated, its windows decorated with elaborate holiday displays. Vintage toys and collectibles. The hand-painted sign promised special Christmas Eve hours until 9 p.m. The window displayed mechanical toys in wooden trains that seemed from another era. Nothing digital, nothing that required batteries. On impulse, Natasha parked and walked toward the warm glow of the storefront. The bell above the door announced her arrival, though the elderly shopkeeper barely looked up from his conversation with the only other customer, a man in his early 30s with broad shoulders beneath a worn winter coat that had clearly weathered many seasons. Beside him, bouncing with barely contained excitement, stood a little girl around 6 years old, her dark hair and slightly uneven pigtails, one shorter than the other. "Sorry, folks. I was just explaining to this gentleman that our card reader's down. Cash only tonight, what with the storm interfering with the connection and all." The shopkeeper's apologetic tone carried genuine regret. The man's face fell as he fished through his wallet, counting bills and loose change. Next to a beautifully crafted miniature toolkit on the counter, the little girl's expectant expression began to waver. The man spoke softly to her. "Emma, sweetheart, we might need to come back after Christmas. Mr. Peterson's machine isn't working. But Daddy, you promised Santa would bring me tools like yours so I can fix things too." The disappointment in the child's voice carried across the quiet store. The father knelt down to her level, his voice gentle but strained. "I know, Em, it's just that the machine—" His words trailed off as he glanced back at his nearly empty wallet. Natasha found herself studying the man's face, the deep fatigue lines around his eyes, the stubble that spoke of long hours and little time for self-care, yet the incredible gentleness with which he addressed his daughter. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar. The recognition hit her suddenly. David Miller, the maintenance manager from her company's main office building. She passed him almost daily in the lobby or elevator. yet had never truly looked at him before. He was simply part of the building's operations, another uniform that kept her corporate machine running smoothly. But here, kneeling before his daughter, he was transformed into something more human than the name-tag staff member who occasionally nodded respectfully when she passed. His daughter tugged at his coat sleeve, whispering something that made him smile despite his obvious disappointment. The intimacy of that small exchange made Natasha feel like an intruder. She turned away, pretending to examine a display of vintage music boxes while they finished their conversation. David shepherded Emma toward the door, the little girl casting one longing look back at the miniature toolkit. Natasha waited until they had left before approaching the counter. That toolkit the little girl wanted. How much is it? The shopkeeper smiled. $98.50 with tax. Quality German craftsmanship, not one of those plastic things that break after a week. Real tools, just smaller. Natasha handed over her credit card, then remembered. Oh, cash only. She rarely carried more than a 20. But tonight, thankfully, her wallet held several $100 bills from her last withdrawal. The shopkeeper raised his eyebrows as she placed one on the counter. Keep the change, consider it a holiday bonus. And could you wrap this quickly? I think they're still outside. Minutes later, Natasha stepped into the swirling snow, the carefully wrapped package in hand. She spotted David and Emma halfway down the block, moving slowly through the accumulating snow. She quickened her pace to catch them, her impractical designer boots slipping slightly on the icy sidewalk. Excuse me, Mr. Miller. Her voice carried in the quiet street. David turned, confusion evident on his face as he registered who was calling his name. Ms. Reed. The formality in his voice reminded Natasha of their vastly different positions within her company's hierarchy. Emma looked up with unfiltered curiosity, her eyes moving between the elegant woman and her father. Natasha extended the package. I believe Santa may have dropped this early. She felt suddenly foolish under David's surprised gaze. I'm sorry, but we can't accept this. David's pride was evident in his stiff posture, though his eyes betrayed conflict. The desire to give his daughter the gift versus the discomfort of accepting charity, especially from his boss's boss's boss. Emma tugged at his coat. Daddy, is this the lady from your building? The one in the big picture in the lobby? David nodded, embarrassment coloring his features. Yes, Emma. This is Miss Reed. She owns Tech Vision. The CEO lady. Emma's eyes widened with the recognition. She's the one on the magazine you were reading. Natasha raised an eyebrow, surprised that her recent cover feature on Business Innovation Monthly would have found its way into this man's reading material. David shifted uncomfortably. I study business profiles for night classes. His explanation came reluctantly, as though revealing too much about himself to someone from his professional world. Before the conversation could continue, the snow began falling more heavily, thick flakes reducing visibility within seconds. The sudden intensity of the storm made all three instinctively move toward the nearest shelter, a 24-hour diner glowing warmly at the corner. We should probably wait this out. David's practical suggestion was directed more to his daughter than to Natasha, but she found herself following them into the warmth of the diner. Inside, holiday decorations hung from every available surface. Paper snowflakes, tinsel garlands, and multicolored lights blinking in erratic patterns. The place was nearly deserted except for a tired-looking waitress refilling salt shakers and an elderly man reading a newspaper at the counter. David guided Emma to a booth by the window, then hesitated, clearly unsure of the protocol when accidentally sharing space with the CEO of his workplace. Natasha solved the dilemma by sliding into the opposite side of the booth, placing the wrapped package beside her. Emma pressed her face against the window, watching the snow transform the street into an undisturbed white canvas. It's like magic, Daddy. Everything's disappearing. The waitress approached with menus and a weary smile that suggested she'd been working since early morning. Can I help you folks? David studied the laminated menu with intense concentration, then discreetly checked his wallet again. Just hot chocolate for my daughter, please, and maybe some coffee for me. The waitress nodded and turned to Natasha, who ordered coffee as well, though she rarely drank it after noon. When the waitress left, an awkward silence descended over the booth. Emma broke it with the direct curiosity only children possess. Why were you at the toy store if you don't have kids? Emma David's reprimand was gentle but firm. That's not polite to ask. Natasha surprised herself by answering honestly. I was supposed to have dinner with my mother tonight, but her flight was canceled because of the storm. I didn't want to sit alone in my apartment, so I went for a drive. Emma nodded with complete understanding, as though a CEO's loneliness made perfect sense to her 6-year-old world. Sometimes Daddy and I get lonely too, since Mommy went to heaven. But we have each other, so it's not so bad. David's expression tightened momentarily with grief or embarrassment, or both. I'm sorry about your mother's flight. The holidays are tough when family can't make it. Something in his genuine sympathy made Natasha uncomfortable. She was accustomed to deference to professional respect, but rarely to genuine empathy, especially from someone who had far more legitimate reasons for disappointment than a rescheduled dinner. The waitress returned with their drinks. Emma's hot chocolate came with a mountain of whipped cream and candy cane stirrer, causing her eyes to widen with delight. As she reached eagerly for the mug, her elbow knocked against Natasha's coffee cup, sending dark liquid cascading across the table and onto Natasha's cream-colored cashmere coat. David reacted instantly, grabbing napkins and dabbing at the spreading stain. I'm so sorry, Emma, be careful. His voice carried the slight edge of someone who couldn't afford another problem tonight. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I ruined your pretty coat. Her lower lip trembled. Natasha, to her own surprise, felt no anger, only sympathy for the child's distress. It's just a coat. It can be cleaned. Her tone was gentler than any she'd used in months of corporate meetings. David continued apologizing while attempting to contain the spill. I know a technique for coffee stains. Cold water first, then a paste of... It's fine, really. Natasha interrupted his practical knowledge with a dismissive wave. I have others. The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. David's expression closed slightly, the gulf between their financial realities made explicit in those 4 words. She searched for something to bridge the sudden distance. Your daughter mentioned night classes? David hesitated before responding. Engineering courses at City College. I'm working on finishing my degree. His tone was carefully neutral, revealing nothing of the story behind this statement. The waitress brought fresh coffee and extra napkins, momentarily saving Natasha from finding an adequate response. When they were alone again, Emma had already forgotten the spill incident, happily drawing shapes in her whipped cream with the candy cane. You know, I never thanked you for fixing the heating issue in the East Wing conference rooms last month. Natasha attempted conversation, suddenly realizing she knew nothing about this man beyond his job function. David seemed surprised by the recognition. You noticed that was me. The work order had your name, and several executives commented on the improvement. Natasha admitted that she hadn't actually known who he was until this moment. She'd simply signed off on a facilities report without connecting the name to a face. Their conversation was interrupted by the chime of Natasha's phone. Her assistant's name flashed on the screen. Excuse me, I should take this. She stepped away from the booth, moving toward the diner's entrance. Mitchell's voice came through clearly, his typical calm shattered by unusual tension. Ms. Reed, I'm sorry to bother you on Christmas Eve, but we've got a situation with the Cambridge server migration. The backup systems failed during the power fluctuation from the storm. Natasha's CEO mode engaged instantly. How bad? Mitchell detailed the technical issues in rapid succession. Security protocols compromised, customer data potentially vulnerable, the German team unavailable due to the holiday. When she returned to the booth, David was helping Emma put on her coat. The storm's letting up a bit. We should head home before it gets worse again. Natasha glanced outside. The snow had indeed slowed temporarily, but the weather alert on her phone warned of increased intensity expected within the hour. She gathered her things, including the forgotten package. Outside, the temperature had dropped further, the wind cutting through even her expensive wool coat. David zipped Emma's jacket up to her chin and adjusted her hat. You two live nearby, about 15 blocks north. David pointed vaguely toward a less affluent neighborhood. I can give you a ride. My car's just down the block. Natasha surprised herself with the offer. David shook his head. We're fine with the bus, but thank you. Emma tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, my feet are already cold. Her small face pinched against the bitter wind. Natasha saw David's internal struggle, pride versus practicality. It's really no trouble. I'm heading that direction anyway. Another lie, but a harmless one. Before David could respond, a city alert blared simultaneously from both their phones. Emergency notification. All public transportation suspended effective immediately due to dangerous conditions. Residents advised to seek shelter. Looks like your decision's been made for you. Natasha nodded towards her car parked under a rapidly disappearing layer of fresh snow. They trudged through the accumulation, Emma giggling as she struggled through drifts nearly to her knees. Inside the Maserati's leather interior, Emma's eyes widened. Your car is fancy, like in movies. Her breath fogged the window as David gave quiet directions, each one taking them further from Natasha's lakefront neighborhood toward the working-class areas northwest of downtown. When they reached the address, a modest but well-maintained apartment building, Natasha turned into the small parking area. But as she shifted to park, the engine made an unusual sound before going completely silent. That doesn't sound good. David's assessment came from professional experience rather than concern. Natasha tried the ignition again. Nothing. Not even the instrument panel lights responded. The luxury vehicle had become an expensive, useless sculpture in the snow. David opened his door. Let me take a look. It might be something simple. In this weather, Natasha's skepticism was evident. I'm already cold. Might as well be useful. His practical approach left no room for argument. While David examined the engine, Emma chatted happily in the back seat, seemingly unconcerned about their situation. Your hair is really pretty. Do you do it yourself or does someone else do it? I go to a salon. Natasha found herself engaged in conversation with a 6-year-old about hair care routines and favorite colors. Minutes later, David returned, snow dusting his shoulders and hair. It's the electrical system. Probably weather-related, but not something I can fix here without tools. His breath formed clouds in the frigid air. I'll call for assistance. Natasha reached for her phone only to find it unresponsive. Battery drained from the constant emergency alerts and her earlier business call. The wind had picked up on driving snow horizontally across the parking lot. Emma shivered visibly despite her winter gear. David made a decision with the quick certainty of a parent accustomed to solving problems. You should come up to our apartment until help arrives. It's warm and Emma needs to get inside. His tone made it clear this was about his daughter's comfort, not an invitation he would have otherwise extended. The building's entrance was modest but clean, the lobby functional without decoration except for a small artificial tree with handmade ornaments. David led them up 2 flights of stairs, explaining the elevator was temperamental in extreme weather. Their apartment door opened into a living space that immediately struck Natasha with its warmth, not just in temperature, but in feeling. Where her penthouse was designed with architectural precision and aesthetic minimalism, this space was clearly designed for living. A comfortable sofa faced a small television. Bookshelves overflowed with diverse titles, and Emma's artwork adorned the refrigerator. It's not much, but it's home. David's unnecessary apology highlighted his awareness of how different this must be from Natasha's usual surroundings. Emma had already shed her outer layers and was showing Natasha her favorite stuffed animal, a well-loved teddy bear missing one eye. His name is Rocket because Daddy says I zoom around like a rocket ship. While Emma chattered, Natasha noticed something unexpected on the living room wall. Technical drawings professionally framed. Complex mechanical systems rendered with precision and creativity. She moved closer, recognizing an innovative HVAC design unlike anything she'd seen before. Did you draw these? Her question interrupted Emma's monologue about Rocket's adventures. David nodded, a hint of pride breaking through his reserved demeanor. Engineering designs. Just ideas I work on sometimes. These are remarkable. The efficiency modifications alone could reduce energy consumption by 30%. Natasha's engineering background, something she rarely discussed in her current role, allowed her to appreciate the technical brilliance of the designs. Surprise flickered across David's face at her knowledgeable assessment, closer to 40 actually in the right implementation. The slight animation in his voice revealed genuine passion. Emma tugged at Natasha's hand. Do you want to see my drawings too? I make machines like Daddy, but mine have more colors. Before Natasha could respond, her attention was captured by another framed document partially visible behind the Christmas tree. A patent application form. The glimpse of technical language in David's name confirmed this wasn't just hobby sketching, but serious innovation. David noticed her gaze and subtly shifted position to block the document from view. I should check the weather updates. See when you might be able to get assistance for your car. The apartment's warmth and the unexpected glimpse into David's hidden talents created a strange dissonance for Natasha. This maintenance manager, a man she'd barely noticed despite passing him countless times, possessed an intellect and creativity that had remained completely invisible to her corporate radar. Emma had disappeared into another room, returning with an armload of colorful drawings. Looking at you, Ms. CEO lady, do you want hot chocolate? We have the kind with little marshmallows. Her excitement at having a guest was palpable. David checked his watch. Actually, Em, it's getting late. You should get ready for bed so Santa can come. But Daddy, it's Christmas Eve and Ms. Reed is stuck here. We can't just make her sit alone while I'm sleeping. That would be horrible manners. Emma's genuine concern for Natasha's emotional well-being was delivered with comical seriousness. I'm sure Mrs. Reed would prefer to wait downstairs in the lobby. Someone will come for her car soon. David's suggestion carried the clear message that he was uncomfortable extending this unexpected encounter. Emma's face fell. But she'll be all alone on Christmas Eve. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she pulled her father down to her level. Remember what Mommy always said about Christmas? No one should be alone when there's room at the table. The mention of his late wife visibly affected David, a flash of grief crossing his features before he composed himself. Emma was watching him with complete certainty that her argument was unassailable. Natasha intervened. Really, I don't want to impose. I can call a car service once my phone charges. She began reaching for her coat. Emma stepped between Natasha and the door with the determination of a tiny guardian. I made a Christmas wish that no one would be lonely tonight. If you leave, my wish won't come true. Her logic was delivered with absolute conviction. David ran a hand through his hair, caught between his daughter's heartfelt plea and the awkwardness of having his CEO in his modest home. Emma continued her campaign, turning to Natasha with earnest eyes. Santa already knows you're here. If you leave now, he might get confused about where to bring your presents. Natasha found herself charmed by the child's concern. My presents will still find me at home, I'm sure. Emma shook her head with the certainty of one who understood the true rules of Christmas. Santa brings extra special gifts when people share Christmas. That's how the magic works. David sighed in surrender. If Ms. Reed wants to stay until her car situation is resolved, she's welcome. His tone suggested he expected Natasha to decline. To his evident surprise, Natasha found herself reluctant to venture back into the storm when her only destination was an empty penthouse. If you're sure it's no imposition, I would appreciate waiting until the weather improves. Emma's triumphant smile suggested she'd never doubted this outcome. I'll get the special Christmas mugs. While Emma busied herself in the kitchen, under David's supervision, Natasha took the opportunity to examine more of the technical drawings on the wall. One detailed an innovative heating system with remarkable efficiency specifications noted in precise handwriting. When David returned with steaming mugs, Natasha gestured toward the drawings. These heating system modifications, they look like they'd solve the persistent temperature regulation problems we've had in the East Wing of the Tech Vision building. David's expression remained carefully neutral. Possibly, the current system is outdated and wasn't designed for the building's expanded capacity. Have you shown these designs to facilities management? Natasha's question was professional curiosity now, not just polite conversation. A slight tightening around David's eyes was the only indication of discomfort. Not my place. I implement approved solutions, not suggest alternatives. His response was measured, revealing the careful boundaries he maintained between his role as maintenance manager and his evident capabilities as an engineer. Emma returned carrying mugs with extreme concentration, tongue caught between her teeth with effort. I brought Christmas cookies too. She set down a plate of slightly misshapen sugar cookies decorated with enthusiastic if imprecise frosting designs. I helped make them, Emma announced proudly. Daddy did the baking, but I did all the decorating. They're beautiful. Natasha accepted a cookie shaped approximately like a star, though one point was significantly longer than the others. The simple domestic scene, shonen, cookies and hot chocolate on Christmas Eve, highlighted how long it had been since Natasha had experienced anything similar. Her Christmases for the past 5 years had been elegant but sterile affairs. Expensive restaurants, or catered events that checked the holiday obligation box without requiring emotional involvement. Emma chattered about Christmas traditions, school projects, and her favorite cartoon characters, with a stream of consciousness delivery unique to children. Her openness created a bubble of normalcy that temporarily suspended the vast differences between her small family and their unexpected guest. When Emma finally began yawning despite her best efforts to appear wide awake, David gently directed her toward bedtime. Santa won't come until you're asleep, Em. Those are the rules. Emma nodded seriously, then turned to Natasha. Will you still be here in the morning? Her question carried genuine concern. I'm not sure. It depends on the weather and my car. Natasha found herself unwilling to definitively disappoint the child. Emma considered this answer, then brightened. Well, if you're still here, you can watch me open presents. She hugged her father goodnight, then surprised Natasha by giving her a quick hug as well, before disappearing into her bedroom. When David returned from tucking in his daughter, the apartment felt suddenly smaller without Emma's energetic presence. He checked his phone for weather updates. The storm's intensified. They've closed most major roads. Even if your car was working, you wouldn't get far tonight. Natasha nodded, resigned to the situation. The couch will be fine. I appreciate your hospitality. David seemed about to say something, then thought better of it. Instead, he gathered extra blankets and a pillow from a hall closet. I'll be up early with Emma, Christmas morning and all, but feel free to sleep in. As he arranged the makeshift bed on the couch, Natasha noticed calluses on his hands, physical evidence of the manual work that maintained her company's infrastructure. Hands that also created the intricate technical drawings displaying genuine engineering brilliance. May I ask you something? Natasha found herself curious about the disconnect between his evident talents and current position. David glanced up cautiously. Of course. The patent application I glimpsed. What is it for? Her directness seemed to surprise him. After a moment's hesitation, he straightened up from arranging the blankets. An energy recapture system for commercial HVAC installations. It harvests waste heat and converts it to supplemental electrical power. His explanation was concise but technical, assuming a level of understanding most people wouldn't possess. Natasha nodded, her engineering background, allowing her to appreciate the concept. That could revolutionize building efficiency standards if it works. Why aren't you pursuing it more actively? David's expression closed slightly. Life doesn't always follow the path we plan, Ms. Reed. He gestured vaguely toward Emma's bedroom. Some responsibilities take precedence over professional ambitions. The unspoken story hung in the air between them. His wife's death, single parenthood, the practical realities that had diverted his evident talents into maintaining rather than innovating. Natasha felt a surprising stab of empathy. While her own path had been one of relentless professional advancement, she recognized the courage in his choices. Call me Natasha, please, at least while I'm invading your Christmas Eve. Her attempt at lightening the mood earned a small smile from David. Only if you drop the Mr. Miller. David, his relaxed posture suggested the first genuine easing of tension since they'd entered his apartment. With Emma asleep and the formal barriers slightly lowered, David made tea and they settled at the small kitchen table. The storm howled outside, occasionally rattling the windows with particularly strong gusts. How long have you worked for Tech Vision? Natasha realized she knew nothing about his employment history despite his familiar face in her building. 3 years in August, since shortly after Sarah, my wife, passed away. His voice remained steady, though a slight tension in his shoulders revealed the emotional weight of the statement. I'm sorry for your loss. Natasha's condolence was genuine if awkwardly delivered. She rarely navigated personal conversations with employees. David acknowledged her words with a nod. Emma was 3 when it happened. Car accident on the interstate. He stated the facts without elaboration, clearly establishing boundaries around his grief. You were an engineer before Natasha changed direction, giving him space around the painful topic. David's expression shifted, a glimpse of his former professional identity emerging. Mechanical engineering at Continental Design Group, specialized in thermal efficiency systems. I was project lead on several commercial installations. The slight pride in his voice was the first indication of his former status. Why maintenance management? The disconnect between his previous role and current position seemed even more pronounced with this new information. David glanced toward Emma's door, lowering his voice slightly. Single parent with a preschooler needs predictable hours and solid benefits. Engineering project work meant travel, unpredictable deadlines, late nights. Tech Vision offered stability and a schedule that allowed me to be there for Emma. His practical explanation carried no resentment, simply acknowledgement of choices made. And your degree, Natasha recalled Emma's mention of night classes, 3 credits short when Sarah died. Between funeral arrangements, grief counseling for Emma, and learning to be both parents overnight, he shrugged. It seemed irrelevant at the time. But you're finishing in it now. Natasha's question was professional curiosity mixed with something less definable. David nodded. Emma's in first grade, more independent now, and I promised Sarah I'd finish eventually. His determination was evident in the set of his jaw. The conversation shifted to safer territory. Chicago's notorious winters building maintenance challenges Emma's school activities. David proved to be knowledgeable and articulate his insights about TechVision's operational inefficiencies delivered with diplomatic precision. As midnight approached, David yawned and stood. I should get some sleep. Emma will be up at dawn, guaranteed. He hesitated, then added, I need to assemble her main present after she's fully asleep. Christmas tradition. Natasha nodded understanding. Thank you again for the hospitality. Left alone in the living room, Natasha surveyed the modest apartment with new eyes. The Christmas tree was small but lovingly decorated, many ornaments clearly handmade by Emma. Family photos showed a smiling woman with Emma's same dark eyes, Sarah presumably, in happier times with David and a younger Emma. The contrast with her own carefully curated living space was stark, where her penthouse featured designer furniture selected primarily for aesthetic value. Every item here served both function and meaning. The worn sofa had clearly hosted countless bedtime stories and movie nights. The dining table bore marks of craft projects and family meals. Natasha's phone had charged enough to function, but the storm warnings remained in effect, with conditions expected to worsen through the night. No car service would venture out in this weather, and even her considerable influence couldn't override public safety protocols. She was genuinely stranded on Christmas Eve in the home of an employee she'd barely noticed before tonight. Around 1 in the morning, a noise from the small home office adjacent to the living room caught her attention. Curious, she followed the sound to find David hunched over a workbench, carefully assembling what appeared to be a miniature version of a professional engineering workstation, complete with tiny functional tools and a magnifying lamp. Couldn't sleep. David looked up at her appearance in the doorway. Unfamiliar surroundings. Natasha gestured toward his project. That looks impressive. David's expression softened with paternal pride. Emma's been asking for real tools like Daddy's for months. This is adjustable for her height as she grows. His hands moved with practiced precision as he tightened microscopic screws. You made this yourself. The craftsmanship was evident in every detail. David nodded. Designed it too. Couldn't find anything commercially available that wasn't plastic junk or dangerously adult-sized. His focus remained on the delicate assembly. Watching him work, Natasha recognized something she rarely encountered in her executive circles. The quiet competence of someone who created, rather than merely directed. David's hands moved with certainty born of practical experience, translating concept into reality through physical skill rather than delegation. Your patent application, how far along is it? Her question broke a comfortable silence. David's hands paused momentarily. First review stage. The legal fees are substantial. His understated descriptions suggested financial strain beyond his casual tone. Natasha knew the patent process well from TechVision's extensive intellectual property portfolio. Without corporate backing, individual inventors face significant hurdles. Have you approached any companies for development partnership? David's subtle expression shift revealed discomfort. Not recently. When Sarah was alive, we had meetings with several firms, but after, his voice trailed off before he refocused. Emma became the priority. The patent process moves slowly enough that I can manage the timeline around her needs. The unspoken reality hung between them. His innovation potentially sidelined by life circumstances rather than merit. Natasha found herself troubled by this waste of evident talent in ways that surprised her. As David completed the final adjustments on Emma's gift, Natasha noticed the engineering drawings spread across his desk, variations on the designs she'd seen framed in the living room, but with more detailed specifications and implementation notes. One caught her attention particularly, a design labeled TechVision Main Campus, Retrofitted System Proposal. You created a specific design for our building. Her question caused David to straighten abruptly. Just a thought exercise. David gathered the papers quickly, but not before Natasha glimpsed detailed calculations showing potential energy savings of nearly 42% with his proposed modifications. That goes well beyond thought exercise. The thoroughness of his analysis reflected significant time investment. David's professional mask returned the maintenance manager, replacing the engineer. Your building has specific inefficiencies I noticed during routine work. The drawings help me better understand the existing system's limitations. He carefully placed the papers in a drawer, closing the conversation along with it. Their interaction had shifted back to employer/employee dynamics, the brief glimpse of David's fuller identity withdrawn behind professional boundaries. Natasha recognized the retreat and respected it, thanking him for satisfying her curiosity before returning to the living room couch. Sleep came surprisingly easily despite the unfamiliar surroundings. Perhaps it was the sound of the storm outside contrasted with the shelter within, or perhaps the simple honesty of this home compared to her carefully designed but ultimately empty penthouse. Whatever the reason, Natasha drifted off with none of the restlessness that typically plagued her nights. Dawn arrived with the unmistakable sound of excited child footsteps. Emma appeared in the living room doorway, her holiday-themed pajamas slightly too large, dark hair tousled from sleep. Her eyes widened upon seeing Natasha still present on their couch. "You stayed, Santa came for you too." Emma's delight was unrestrained as she bounded across the room. David appeared behind her, apologetic. "Sorry, Christmas morning excitement waits for no one." His hair was rumpled stubble, darker than the previous evening, but his eyes were warm with paternal affection as he observed his daughter's joy. Emma tugged Natasha toward the Christmas tree with surprising strength for her small size. "Come see what Santa brought." She pointed to the carefully arranged presents, focusing on a large package prominently displayed. "That one's been there all night waiting for me." Natasha allowed herself to be pulled into Emma's excitement, settling cross-legged on the floor beside her as the child tore into wrapped packages with uninhibited enthusiasm. David brought coffee for himself and Natasha, watching his daughter with quiet contentment. When Emma reached the workstation David had assembled overnight, her reaction was everything a parent could hope for. Pure, uncomplicated joy. "It's just like your workbench, Daddy, but it's my size. Look at the real tools. They're tiny but real." Each discovery prompted new exclamations as she examined every feature. David knelt beside her, demonstrating how the various components worked. "These are actual precision tools, Em, not toys. They require respect and proper handling." His instruction was gentle but serious, treating his daughter's interest with genuine respect rather than condescension. "I'll be super careful, I promise. Can I fix things now?" "Real things." Emma's earnestness made Natasha smile despite herself. "We'll start with simple projects." David's patient explanation of progressive skill development reflected his engineering mindset applied to parenting. As Emma organized her new tools with intense concentration, David noticed Natasha observing them. "She's been fascinated by how things work since she could crawl." His pride was evident in the slight smile that transformed his typically reserved expression. The scene before her, father and daughter sharing not just genetic resemblance, but genuine intellectual connection, stirred something unexpected in Natasha. Her own father had departed when she was younger than Emma, leaving only vague memories and an emptiness she'd filled with academic and professional achievement. Emma suddenly remembered something, darting to her bedroom and returning with a small, clumsily wrapped package. "I made this for you, since you're here for Christmas." Her announcement came with such certainty that Natasha wondered when the child had managed to wrap this gift. David looked equally surprised. "When did you do that, Em?" "Last night after bedtime." Emma's matter-of-fact confession about her nighttime activities made David shake his head with amused resignation. The package contained a bracelet made of colored yarn and plastic beads clearly crafted with childish determination rather than skill. Natasha slipped it onto her wrist with genuine appreciation. "Thank you, Emma. It's beautiful. I made the pattern special." Emma pointed to the arrangement of beads. "Blue for winter, green for Christmas trees, and silver because Daddy says you're an important business lady, and important business ladies like shiny things." Her explanation revealed both thoughtfulness and her absorption of cultural gender assumptions. David winced slightly at having his generalizations repeated, but Natasha laughed, genuinely charmed by the child's straightforward assessment. "This is the most meaningful gift I've received in years." Her honesty surprised even herself. While Emma arranged her presents in order of perceived importance, David checked the weather reports on his phone. "Roads are being cleared, but it'll be hours before they're fully operational. Your car will need a tow regardless." He delivered this practical assessment while preparing a simple breakfast, moving efficiently in the small kitchen. I should call for assistance. Natasha reached for her phone, conscious that she'd already imposed on this small family's Christmas longer than appropriate. Emma looked up from her organizing with alarm. But you have to stay for Christmas pancakes, it's tradition. Her distress at the potential breach of holiday protocol was genuine. David added gently, the pancakes are non-negotiable, I'm afraid, family rule. His inclusion of Natasha in this family rule seemed to surprise him as much as her, a slight flush coloring his neck as he turned back to the stove. The domesticity of the scene, David cooking while Emma chattered about her gifts, created an odd displacement for Natasha. Her usual Christmas day involved catching up on work emails before her mother arrived for a polite dinner at an upscale restaurant. The genuine warmth of this simple celebration highlighted what her carefully constructed life lacked. As they ate breakfast, Emma dominated the conversation with plans for her new workbench, interspersed with detailed descriptions of past Christmases and school adventures. David occasionally translated her more esoteric references or gently corrected exaggerations, the easy rhythm between them speaking of deep connection. Watching them, Natasha found herself wondering about Sarah, the woman whose absence shaped this household as surely as her presence once had. How different would this Christmas morning be if she were still alive? The thought brought unexpected melancholy. Emma seemed to sense this shift in mood with a child's intuition. Are you sad because you're not with your family? Her directness momentarily startled Natasha. Before she could formulate an appropriate response, Emma continued, when I get sad about mommy not being here, Daddy says it's okay to feel two things at once, happy about now and sad about missing someone. Her wisdom, clearly absorbed from David's thoughtful parenting, carried surprising insight. That's very true. Natasha found herself responding with unusual honesty. Sometimes I get so busy I forget to feel either one. David watched this exchange with quiet attention, neither interrupting nor directing it. The space he gave his daughter to navigate complex emotional territory reflected confidence in her emotional intelligence that many parents lacked. After breakfast, Emma insisted on demonstrating her new tools by disassembling a broken alarm clock David produced from a drawer of items awaiting repair. Her small fingers moved with surprising dexterity as her father provided minimal guidance, allowing her to problem-solve independently. Natasha's phone chimed with multiple notifications as cellular service improved with the storm's passing. Dozens of emails from her executive team, several voicemails from Mitchell about the server crisis, and a text from her mother checking that she was safe during the storm. Reality intruded on the bubble of this unexpected Christmas morning. I need to handle some work emergencies. The TechVision servers went down during the storm. Her explanation was directed to David, though Emma looked up with interest. Like when Daddy fixes the big computers at work. Emma's association of her father with important technical solutions revealed how he'd framed his maintenance role to preserve dignity in his daughter's eyes. Very similar. Natasha smiled at the comparison before stepping into the kitchen for privacy as she returned her assistant's call. Mitchell answered immediately, relief evident in his voice. Ms. Reed, thank goodness. We've got the European team online, but they're having trouble accessing the backup protocols without your authorization. The crisis required immediate executive decisions that had awaited her availability. As Natasha handled the technical emergency with practiced efficiency, she remained conscious of the domestic scene visible through the kitchen doorway, David helping Emma identify the malfunctioning component in the alarm clock, their heads bent together in similar expressions of concentration. The contrast between these two worlds, her high-stakes corporate responsibilities and this intimate family moment, created dissonance she hadn't expected. For years, Natasha had defined success exclusively through professional achievement. Yet something about this modest apartment, with its hand-drawn Christmas decorations and genuine connections, challenged assumptions she hadn't realized she held. After concluding her call, Natasha returned to find Emma proudly displaying the disassembled clock components arranged in precise order on a workspace mat. I found the broken part, her accomplishment, carried the weight of significant achievement. Excellent diagnostic work. Natasha's praise used the professional terminology she would with her engineering team, treating Emma's accomplishment with genuine respect rather than condescension. Emma beamed at the adult acknowledgement before turning serious. Do you have to go fix your computers now? The question carried more weight than its simple wording suggested. Natasha checked the weather app on her phone, noting road conditions were improving. I should probably call about my car soon. David nodded, understanding, already reaching for his phone. I'll contact the building's towing service. They should be operational by now. His practical response acknowledged the inevitable conclusion to their unexpected connection. As he made arrangements, Emma approached Natasha with surprising solemnity for a 6-year-old. I'm glad you got stuck in the snow with us. Her simple statement carried genuine emotion. I am too, Emma. Natasha's response came with unexpected sincerity. This has been the most memorable Christmas I've had in many years. Emma considered this with serious concentration. Maybe next Christmas, you could come on purpose instead of by accident. Her invitation, offered with childish directness, carried implications neither adult seemed prepared to address. David returned with practical information that sidestepped his daughter's suggestion. They can tow your car to the dealership, but it won't be serviced until after the holiday. The city's sending a plow through our neighborhood within the hour, so rideshare services should be running again soon. The impending departure created awkward awareness of their unusual circumstance. CEO and maintenance manager, thrown together by chance on Christmas, now returning to their respective worlds in hierarchical distance. Natasha gathered her belongings, including Emma's handmade bracelet, which she carefully secured around her wrist. Thank you both for your hospitality. My Christmas would have been far less pleasant stranded alone in my car. David's response was polite but reserved, the maintenance manager reasserting professional boundaries. Happy to help, Ms. Reed. His reversion to formal address signaled the end of their brief connection outside workplace roles. Emma, however, maintained her straightforward approach, hugging Natasha impulsively. I'll show you my fixed clock next time I see you at the big building. Her assumption of continued personal interaction revealed the gap between adult understanding of social hierarchies and a child's simpler view of human connections. As Natasha prepared to leave, her attention was caught by the patent application still visible on David's desk. Your heating system design, would you be open to discussing it in a more official capacity after the holidays? Her question bridged personal and professional worlds uncomfortably. David's surprise was evident, though quickly masked. It's still in development, not ready for formal presentation. His caution suggested previous disappointments, or perhaps simple realistic assessment of corporate interest in employee innovations. I'd like to see it anyway. As an engineer, not just a CEO, Natasha's clarification acknowledged his expertise in a way their previous professional interactions never had. Before David could respond, Emma intervened with absolute confidence. Daddy's invention is amazing. It makes buildings stay warm without wasting heat. He explained it to me with ice cream. Her advocacy for her father carried complete certainty in his brilliance. David's expression softened at his daughter's support, perhaps after the new year. His cautious acceptance acknowledged the opportunity while maintaining professional distance. As Natasha waited for her rideshare at the building entrance, the events of the past 18 hours seemed increasingly surreal. Had it not been for the handmade bracelet still around her wrist, she might have questioned whether the entire experience had been some strange holiday-induced hallucination. The unexpected intimacy of sharing Christmas morning with this small family had revealed aspects of herself long submerged beneath professional ambition. Watching David's patient guidance of Emma's curiosity had stirred memories of her own early passion for engineering, before corporate advancement became her singular focus. More unsettling was the recognition of what her success had cost her. The Reed Technologies penthouse contained every luxury money could buy, but nothing comparable to the simple joy was evident in Emma's exclamations over homemade pancakes, or the quiet satisfaction in David's expression as he watched his daughter learn. As her car arrived, Natasha found herself reluctant to leave this modest building for her empty penthouse. Something fundamental had shifted in her perception, not just of David Miller, whose hidden brilliance she'd completely overlooked, but of success itself and how narrowly she'd defined it. The driver navigated freshly plowed streets as Natasha responded to critical emails, corporate responsibilities already reclaiming her attention. Yet Emma's parting words echoed persistently. Maybe next Christmas you could come on purpose instead of by accident. The question contained wisdom beyond the child's understanding, about intention versus circumstance, about the choices that shaped lives beyond professional achievements. As Chicago's skyline came into view, Natasha found herself considering possibilities that would have seemed inconceivable 24 hours earlier. The bracelet around her wrist, childish, imperfect, and more meaningful than any luxury item she owned, seemed to carry a message about value that transcended balance sheets and quarterly projections. Perhaps some calculations couldn't be quantified in spreadsheets or annual reports. Perhaps some forms of success couldn't be measured in market share or stock prices. As her car approached the gleaming tower housing both her company headquarters and her penthouse residence, Natasha made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of continuing home, she directed the driver to drop her at the office entrance. The server crisis provided convenient justification, but her motivation ran deeper. David's innovative designs deserve more than casual dismissal or bureaucratic obstruction. If Tech Vision Systems truly saw for the inefficiencies his drawings addressed, professional obligation demanded she investigate. And if her interest carried personal dimensions as well, appreciation for unexpected kindness, recognition of overlooked talent, or simple human connection on a holiday designed for exactly that, perhaps those motivations weren't entirely inappropriate either. Christmas Day found Natasha Reed at her executive desk rather than her empty penthouse reviewing building systems documentation with newfound interest, while occasionally touching the handmade bracelet that reminded her of a different kind of Christmas entirely. One where connection outweighed acquisition and where the value of individuals transcended their position on an organizational chart. The following 3 days pulled Natasha back into TechVision's crisis management with relentless efficiency. Server restoration security protocols, damage assessment. The technical emergency demanded her complete focus, allowing little time for reflection on the unexpected Christmas interlude. Yet Emma's handmade bracelet remained on her wrist, an incongruous splash of childish color against her designer suits. On the 4th day, with systems stabilized and European partners reassured, Natasha found herself standing at her office window, staring down at the city below. Snow had transformed Chicago into a monochrome landscape, broken only by plowed streets and colorful winter coats of pedestrians far below. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, the poised CEO mask showing slight cracks. The soft chime of her intercom broke her contemplation. Mitchell's voice carried professional detachment. Facilities manager on line 3 about the heating issues in the East Wing, Ms. Reed. Shall I tell him you're in a meeting? Natasha hesitated, an uncharacteristic moment of indecision. Is it David Miller? No, ma'am. Robert Vance, head of facilities. Mitchell's confusion at her question was evident even through the intercom. Put him through. Natasha returned to her desk, arranging her features into professional neutrality as she lifted the receiver. Robert Vance's voice carried the practiced smoothness of middle management. Ms. Reed, I understand you have taken a personal interest in our heating infrastructure challenges. While I appreciate executive attention to operational matters, I wanted to clarify that we have established vendors and protocols for system upgrades. The careful territorial defense beneath his polite phrasing was unmistakable. Natasha let silence stretch for 3 calculated seconds before responding. Mr. Vance, I've reviewed the system performance metrics for the past 18 months. The East Wing inefficiencies have persisted despite 3 contractor interventions at considerable expense. I'm exploring alternative solutions. Vance's tone shifted to cautious agreement. Of course, we're always open to improvements. I can have our primary HVAC contractor prepare a comprehensive proposal by next quarter. Natasha tapped her pen against her desk calendar, a rare physical manifestation of impatience. I'd like to see all previous proposals that have crossed your desk in the past year, including any submitted by internal personnel. The slight pause before Vance's response confirmed her suspicion. I don't recall any internal submissions of significance, Ms. Reed. Our maintenance team focuses on implementation rather than design. Nevertheless, I'd like to review everything by tomorrow morning. Natasha ended the call before Vance could construct further obstacles, then immediately dialed Mitchell's extension. Find everything we have on David Miller in HR files. Educational background performance reviews, project notes. And get me the complete maintenance records for the East Wing HVAC system. Mitchell's efficiency matched her urgency. The requested files appeared in her secure inbox within the hour, creating a digital portrait of a man she'd barely noticed before Christmas Eve. David Miller's employment record confirmed his background at Continental Design Group, where he'd led implementation teams for commercial energy systems across 3 states. His Tech Vision hiring documentation included letters of recommendation praising his technical expertise with a single notation about family circumstances necessitating schedule stability. More revealing were the maintenance logs, dozens of documented temperature issues in the East Wing, with David's detailed notes suggesting systemic design flaws rather than isolated component failures. Yet none of his observations had translated into formal improvement proposals through official channels. A soft knock interrupted Natasha's research. Mitchell entered with additional paper files. These were in the archived proposals cabinet, never digitized. His tone suggested he had undertaken a significant search. The manila folder contained hand-drawn technical schematics for an improved heating system dated 14 months earlier. David Miller's signature appeared at the bottom alongside detailed cost projections showing potential savings of over $200,000 annually in energy costs for the East Wing alone. A rejection stamp and brief notation from Robert Vance provided the only response: beyond scope of maintenance responsibilities. Retain current vendor relationships. Natasha studied the drawings, recognizing elements from the designs she'd glimpsed in David's apartment, but noting these were an earlier, less refined iteration. Even this preliminary version demonstrated innovative approaches to energy recapture that exceeded industry standards. She reached for her phone, then hesitated. Their Christmas connection had occurred outside normal hierarchical channels. Reestablishing contact through official means might erase the genuine human connection that had briefly existed between them. Instead, Natasha found herself standing in the building's main lobby the following morning, positioned near the employee entrance as maintenance staff arrived for the early shift. The security team's surprised glances at her presence were quickly masked by professional deference. When David entered bundled against the January cold, his momentary freeze upon seeing her confirmed the awkwardness of their situation. His expression shifted from surprise to careful neutrality as he approached. "Good morning, Ms. Reed. Unexpected to see you in the lobby." Problems with executive elevator access. The maintenance manager persona had fully replaced the man who had shared Christmas pancakes with his daughter, his tone carrying professional respect without personal warmth. Natasha matched his formality, conscious of watching eyes around them. "I was hoping to speak with you briefly about a facilities matter. Would you have time this morning?" David checked his watch, the practical gesture underlining his time constraints. "I can spare 15 minutes at 9:30 if that works for your schedule." His careful phrasing maintained appropriate hierarchical distance. "Perfect. My office." Natasha turned toward the executive elevator, then paused. "How's Emma?" The personal question disrupted their carefully maintained professional script. A brief softening around David's eyes acknowledged the genuine nature of her inquiry. "Excited about school starting again yesterday? She's been bringing her clock to show everyone how she fixed it." With that small connection reestablished, they separated to their respective domains. Natasha to the executive floor with its panoramic views, and David to the maintenance department's windowless offices in the building's lower levels. When David arrived precisely at 9:30, his appearance reflected careful preparation for an executive meeting. His maintenance uniform exchanged for a simple button-down shirt and khakis, his typical tool belt absent. The transformation highlighted how rarely he was invited to upper management spaces except to repair something. Natasha gestured toward the sitting area rather than conducting their conversation across her imposing desk. "I found your heating system proposal from last year." The directness of her opening seemed to catch David off guard. He recovered quickly, professional caution evident in his measured response. That was a preliminary concept sketch, not a formal submission. Yet it addressed persistent problems that have cost TechVision over $500,000 in inefficient energy usage and lost productivity from temperature complaints. Natasha placed the folder on the table between them. Why wasn't it pursued? David's hesitation revealed the complex territory between hierarchical honesty and career self-preservation. Maintenance department submissions rarely proceed to implementation consideration. His diplomatic phrasing avoided direct criticism of Vance while acknowledging organizational realities. "The designs I saw in your apartment seem more advanced than these." Natasha's shift to their Christmas connection disrupted the careful professional distance David had maintained. "Those are personal projects. Outside company time." His response carried a hint of defensiveness that suggested previous boundary disputes. Natasha recognized the delicate position she'd placed him in, caught between professional opportunity and justified caution after previous rejection. I'd like to see the current version, officially as a potential solution to our infrastructure challenges. Her clarification attempted to bridge personal and professional contexts. David studied her expression, clearly assessing her sincerity. Why now? His direct question cut through corporate niceties. Because I've seen the quality of your work firsthand, and because wasting talent is bad business. Natasha matched his directness with her own. Something shifted in David's posture. Not quite trust, but perhaps willingness to consider possibilities. The complete system would require substantial implementation investment. His acknowledgement tested her seriousness. If it delivers the efficiency metrics you projected, the ROI would justify the investment. Natasha kept the conversation in familiar business terminology, providing professional common ground. Their discussion evolved into technical specifics, David's initial reserve gradually yielding to genuine engagement as they explored engineering challenges. His expertise emerged naturally, his explanations precise without condescension. As their scheduled 15 minutes stretched to 45, David finally checked his watch with apologetic awareness. I need to check on the loading dock repairs. His reluctance to end their productive discussion was evident despite his professional obligations. Bring the complete designs tomorrow morning. Same time. Natasha's direction carried both executive authority and personal request. After David departed, Natasha remained in the sitting area contemplating their interaction. The man who had just left combined practical problem solving with innovative vision, a combination increasingly rare in TechVision's specialized corporate structure. More intriguing was the glimpse of passion that had emerged when discussing technical challenges, briefly overriding his careful professional boundaries. Mitchell's entrance with her daily schedule interrupted her reflections. The Tokyo team needs confirmation on the security protocols, and legal has acquisition documents requiring your signature before close of business. Natasha's corporate responsibilities reasserted their demands, pushing personal considerations aside as she returned to the CEO role that defined her professional identity. Yet throughout the day's meetings and decisions, the folder containing David's preliminary designs remained on her desk, a tangible connection to possibilities that extended beyond quarterly projections. The following morning's meeting exceeded Natasha's expectations. David arrived with comprehensive technical specifications and implementation plans that reflected years of practical experience combined with genuine innovation. His presentation remained modest but confident, addressing potential challenges with practical solutions that demonstrated deep understanding of building infrastructure. This could revolutionize commercial building efficiency standards if implemented correctly. Natasha studied the projected energy savings with professional appreciation. Have you protected the intellectual property? David's hesitation revealed financial constraints rather than oversight. Patent application is in process but moving slowly. The legal fees are substantial for an individual applicant. His admission acknowledged personal limitations without seeking sympathy. Natasha made a decision that bridged business opportunity with personal interest. I'd like TechVision to explore an implementation partnership. We'd provide the capital investment for a full installation in our East Wing as a pilot project with potential licensing arrangement if the system performs as projected. Her offer was carefully structured to provide mutual benefit rather than corporate appropriation of his innovation. David's surprised expression suggested he'd expected interest, but not concrete opportunity. That would be significant. His understated response barely contained evident excitement. Their discussion of terms and implementation timeline proceeded with increasing enthusiasm, the collaborative energy creating temporary equality that transcended their organizational positions. When they finally concluded nearly 2 hours later, both had forgotten the typical constraints of hierarchical interaction. The elevator ride to the lobby stretched with unusual tension, both aware their professional collaboration had shifted something between them without clear definition. As the doors opened to the main floor, David turned to her with careful formality. Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Reed. I'll prepare the detailed implementation schedule by Friday. As he stepped away, Natasha made an impulsive decision. How's Emma's clock repair business going? Her question carried deliberate personal connection. David's professional mask softened slightly, genuine warmth entering his voice. expanding rapidly. She dismantled the remote control last night. Reassembly is still a developing skill. His parental pride transcended corporate boundaries. Natasha hesitated, then pushed beyond conventional executive restraint. I'd like to hear more about her progress. Perhaps dinner sometime. The invitation bridged their worlds without clear definition of personal versus professional interest. David's surprise registered briefly before careful consideration replaced it. Emma would enjoy that. She's been asking about you. His response acknowledged the invitation while maintaining appropriate boundaries through his daughter's involvement. As David disappeared into the building's service quarters, Natasha rode the executive elevator back to her office with unusual awareness of having crossed invisible lines between professional interest and personal connection. The engineering proposal provided legitimate business justification, yet her motivation carried complexity beyond strategic investment. The implementation process began with remarkable efficiency, David's practical knowledge accelerating timelines that typically moved with corporate sluggishness. Facilities Director Vance's initial resistance dissolved when Natasha framed the project as an executive innovation initiative, though his carefully neutral expressions during planning meetings revealed continued territorial concerns. 3 weeks after their initial discussion, Natasha's intercom chimed with Mitchell's voice. Mr. Miller is here regarding the East Wing project. He says there's an unexpected development that requires your attention. Send him in. Natasha straightened the papers on her desk, an uncharacteristic, nervous gesture she immediately recognized and suppressed. David entered carrying technical drawings and a tablet, his expression tense rather than excited. We've encountered a significant compatibility issue with the building's original infrastructure. The East Wing's primary circulation system uses proprietary components that won't interface with the energy recapture mechanisms without substantial modification. The technical obstacle threatened the project's feasibility, potentially vindicating Vance's unstated skepticism. Natasha maintained professional calm despite personal disappointment. What are our options? David placed his tablet on her desk, displaying alternative approaches. We can retrofit the existing components at additional cost and time, or redesign the interface completely, which would require regulatory reapproval. Neither path is ideal. His frustration was evident despite professional presentation. The technical challenge created unexpected intimacy as they bent over schematics together, physical proximity necessitated by complex diagrams. Natasha found herself acutely aware of David's subtle cologne and the intensity of his focus as they explored potential solutions. Their collaborative problem-solving continued through scheduled meetings and into evening hours, professional purpose temporarily erasing organizational hierarchy. When they finally identified a viable modification approach near midnight, the shared victory created connection transcending their formal roles. The maintenance staff break room offered the only available coffee at that hour, forcing Natasha into unfamiliar territory as they celebrated their breakthrough with caffeine in chipped mugs bearing company safety slogans. David leaned against the break room counter, exhaustion softening his usual professional boundaries. Emma would be impressed with our persistence. She believes every problem has a solution if you just take enough things apart. His smile carried genuine warmth. Wise perspective for engineering and life. Natasha's response acknowledged the philosophy's broader application. How is she handling your late nights on this project? David's expression shifted with parental concern. My neighbor watches her when I'm working late. She's understanding but disappointed about postponed father-daughter repair sessions. His admission revealed the personal cost of professional opportunity. The conversation shifted to parenting challenges, and Emma's developing interest creating personal connection without explicit acknowledgement of its unusual nature, given their respective positions. Their comfortable exchange continued until a maintenance worker's arrival for his night shift break reminded them of their corporate context. As February progressed, the implementation phase transformed the East Wing into a construction zone with David coordinating teams of contractors and tech vision engineers. Natasha found legitimate reasons to conduct regular site inspections, their professional interactions gradually incorporating personal elements as David shared Emma's latest adventures in engineering experiments. Their evolving connection remained undefined, more than professional collaboration, but contained within appropriate boundaries. If other executives noticed Natasha's unusual involvement in an infrastructure project, they attributed it to cost-saving potential rather than personal interest in the maintenance manager who had designed it. The weekly project update meetings became highlights in Natasha's carefully structured calendar opportunities for genuine engagement beyond performance metrics and strategic positioning. David's practical problem-solving approach provided refreshing contrast to the political maneuvering that dominated executive discussions. When the installation reached its final phase in early March, David's notification of completion carried unexpected melancholy. Final testing begins tomorrow morning. Barring unforeseen issues, the system should be fully operational by Friday afternoon. His message acknowledged the project's conclusion would remove their primary reason for regular interaction. Natasha stared at his email longer than his technical content warranted, recognizing a crossroads without clear direction. Their professional collaboration had created connection that defied conventional corporate boundaries yet lacked defined path forward once the project concluded. Her phone chimed with Mitchell's reminder about the quarterly board presentation the following day. The corporate calendar reasserted its demands, pulling Natasha back into CEO responsibilities that had briefly shared priority with an infrastructure project and its innovative designer. That evening, as Natasha reviewed presentation materials in her penthouse, her phone displayed an incoming call from David Miller, their first communication outside business hours since Christmas. She answered with careful neutrality. "David, is there an issue with the testing schedule?" His voice carried unusual tension. "Not with the project, it's Emma. She's running a high fever, and I need to take her to the emergency room. I've arranged for the assistant manager to oversee morning testing, but I wanted you to know directly given your investment in the timeline." His explanation maintained professional framing despite personal circumstances. "Is there anything you need?" Natasha's question transcended professional boundaries. David's hesitation suggested surprise at her personal concern. "We're managing. Just wanted to ensure project continuity." His attempt to maintain professional distance despite evident worry created unexpected frustration for Natasha. "Please keep me updated on Emma's condition. The testing schedule is secondary." Natasha's prioritization of his daughter's health over project timelines acknowledged the personal dimension of their connection without explicitly defining it. The following day's board presentation proceeded with practiced efficiency, Natasha highlighting TechVision's market position and strategic initiatives with her typical command. When the presentation turned to operational improvements, she featured the innovative energy system being implemented in the East Wing, carefully crediting in-house engineering expertise without specifically naming David. The board's questions focused on projected cost savings and implementation timelines, the human element behind the innovation irrelevant to their financial assessment. Natasha found herself unexpectedly frustrated by the reduction of David's brilliant design to mere numerical projections. As the meeting concluded, Natasha checked her phone for messages, finding a brief update from David Emma, diagnosed with severe strep throat. Responding to antibiotics. Will work remotely monitoring system activation. His message maintained professional focus despite personal crisis. Natasha's response bridged their worlds. Project proceeding on schedule. Tell Emma that fixing people takes priority over fixing machines. Her message acknowledged both professional continuity and personal concern. That evening, rather than returning to her penthouse, Natasha found herself stopping at a bookstore near TechVision headquarters. The children's section offered bewildering variety until a helpful clerk directed her to titles combining storytelling with basic engineering concepts for early elementary ages. Natasha arrived at Chicago Children's Hospital 30 minutes later. The unfamiliar environment of bright colors and child-focused decor creating dissonance with her executive appearance. The reception desk staff regarded her designer suit with mild curiosity as she requested David Miller's daughter's room number. David's surprised expression when she appeared in the doorway reflected genuine shock rather than mere surprise. "Ms. Reed." His formal address highlighted the unexpectedness of her appearance in this personal context. Emma's reaction contrasted with her father's caution. Pure delight despite her obvious illness. "You came to visit me in the hospital." Her excitement transcended professional boundaries with childish directness. Natasha held up the colorful bag from the bookstore. "I heard Chicago's youngest engineer needed some entertainment during repairs." Her phrasing deliberately framed Emma's recovery in technical terms the child would appreciate. Emma's smile illuminated her pale face as she eagerly investigated the bag's contents, each book receiving enthusiastic assessment as David watched with a complex expression balancing gratitude, confusion, and caution. While Emma explored her gifts, David moved closer to Natasha. His voice lowered. "You didn't need to do this." His statement acknowledged the unusual nature of her visit while expressing genuine appreciation. Natasha matched his quiet tone. "I wanted to." Her simple response carried meaning beyond professional obligation. Their conversation shifted to Emma's condition and treatment plan, the medical discussion providing safe territory that acknowledged concern without defining its nature. When a nurse arrived for medication administration, Natasha recognized appropriate departure timing, promising Emma she would visit the famous workbench when the young engineer returned home. In the hospital corridor, awkward awareness of boundary crossing replaced their comfortable exchange at Emma's bedside. David walked Natasha toward the elevator, professional courtesy layered with personal gratitude. "Thank you for coming." It meant a lot to her. His careful wording focused on his daughter rather than his own response to Natasha's unexpected appearance. "How are you managing the hospital schedule with work responsibilities?" Natasha's question acknowledged the practical challenges of single parenthood during crisis. David's tired smile revealed the strain behind his composed exterior. "1 hour at a time. My neighbor's been bringing changes of clothes and handling school communications. The project monitoring I can do remotely from here." His explanation highlighted both his isolation and determination. The elevator arrived, creating artificial deadline for their interaction. Natasha stepped inside, then held the door open with uncharacteristic hesitation. "If you need anything, schedule adjustments, resources, anything at all, please ask. My personal cell is faster than email." Her offer deliberately blurred professional and personal support. The elevator doors closed on David's contemplative expression, leaving Natasha with unresolved awareness of having crossed invisible lines without clear definition of territory beyond. The following days established new patterns of connection. David's project updates included brief reports on Emma's recovery alongside system performance metrics. Natasha's responses acknowledged both with equal attention, their communication expanding beyond professional parameters without explicit acknowledgement of its evolution. When Emma was released from the hospital, Natasha sent a small tool set specifically designed for electronics, repair, the accompanying note mentioning anticipated system activation the following week, and suggesting Chicago's youngest engineer might want to witness technological history. The system activation proceeded with anticlimactic efficiency, years of David's theoretical work translated into humming machinery and digital displays showing immediate energy recapture. The engineering team acknowledged the design's elegance with professional appreciation, while facilities staff gradually accepted the new system despite initial resistance to change. Robert Vance's congratulatory email to David, copied to Natasha and other executives, carried grudging acknowledgement without genuine enthusiasm. The project's success had validated innovations he'd previously rejected, creating uncomfortable awareness of overlooked potential. Natasha's response expanded recognition beyond operational success. "This project demonstrates the exceptional talent within our organization when we create pathways for innovation at all levels." Her public acknowledgement of David's contribution without specific naming maintained professional framing while establishing important precedent. The East Wing system's performance exceeded projections during the initial weeks, generating corporate interest that transformed David's position from maintenance manager to emerging asset. Engineering departments that had previously ignored his existence now requested his consultation on efficiency projects, creating unfamiliar visibility within organizational hierarchy. Natasha observed this transformation with mixed emotions. Professional satisfaction at deserved recognition balanced against awareness that increased visibility created new pressures for a single parent, balancing career advancement with family responsibilities. Their professional interactions necessarily decreased as the project concluded, returning them to organizational distance that had been temporarily bridged by collaboration. Yet something fundamental had shifted between them, creating connection that defied conventional corporate boundaries without clear definition. On a Tuesday afternoon in late March, Natasha's carefully structured schedule was interrupted by Mitchell's unusually hesitant notification. "Mr. Miller is requesting a brief meeting at your convenience. He says it's regarding a personal matter rather than the East Wing project. Send him up." Natasha's immediate response revealed eagerness that surprised even herself. When David entered her office, his expression carried uncharacteristic nervousness beneath professional composure. His careful closure of her office door suggested the private nature of his visit. "I received a job offer this morning from Westbrook Engineering, design team lead for their commercial division." His statement carried both pride and uncertainty. Natasha maintained outward calm despite unexpected emotional response to his potential departure. "That's a significant opportunity." Her neutral acknowledgement masked complex reaction. David nodded, his expression revealing internal conflict. It would mean relocating to Boston. His statement highlighted the personal implications beyond professional advancement. The unspoken question hung between them. What connection existed to consider in this decision? Their relationship remained undefined, having evolved beyond professional collaboration without explicit personal acknowledgement. David's mention of relocation invited clarification Natasha hadn't prepared to provide. "The salary and position would better reflect your capabilities." Natasha's response retreated to safe professional assessment, avoiding personal implications. "Emma's been accepted to an excellent school program. They are designed for academically advanced children." David's mention of his daughter's opportunities suggested family considerations outweighed other factors. The silence between them expanded with unaddressed questions about possibilities neither had explicitly acknowledged. Natasha finally broke it with careful neutrality. "When would they need your decision?" David's response carried the weight of impending change. 2 weeks. They're eager to incorporate the energy recapture system into ongoing projects." His explanation highlighted the professional recognition his innovation had finally received. "I wouldn't want Tech Vision to stand in the way of your advancement." Natasha's statement offered professional support while avoiding personal dimensions, her carefully constructed response revealing nothing of her internal conflict. Something in David's expression suggested disappointment at her measured reaction, though his professional demeanor remained intact. "I appreciated your mentorship throughout the project. It's been invaluable." His formal gratitude maintained appropriate boundaries while acknowledging her role in his current opportunity. As David departed, Natasha remained at her desk unexpectedly motionless amid the constant movement of executive responsibilities. The potential of his departure created clarity about connection she'd avoided defining even to herself. Beyond professional collaboration or hierarchical interaction, David and Emma had breached carefully constructed walls around her personal isolation. The handmade bracelet still occasionally accompanied her most important presentations, a talisman of genuine connection in the corporate arena of strategic positioning. Emma's unfiltered enthusiasm during her hospital visit had provided rare, authentic interaction in Natasha's carefully managed existence. Most unsettling was recognition of what David's innovative perspective had awakened in her. Not merely professional appreciation, but genuine reconnection with her own engineering passion, long subordinated to executive advancement. His practical, problem-solving approach had reminded her of satisfaction beyond quarterly projections and market positioning. Natasha's intercom chimed with Mitchell's reminder about her next appointment, drawing her back to immediate responsibilities. Yet as she gathered materials for her budget committee meeting, the emotional disruption of David's potential departure remained unresolved, creating awareness of connection she hadn't acknowledged until confronted with its possible loss. The following week passed with mechanical precision as Natasha navigated Tech Vision's daily operations. Board approvals, strategic planning sessions, investor relations. The rhythm of corporate leadership continued uninterrupted, while the uncertainty of David's potential departure remained unaddressed between them. Their professional interactions continued with careful neutrality, the personal dimension of his decision hovering beyond explicit acknowledgement. On Thursday afternoon, Mitchell placed a thick folder on her desk with uncharacteristic hesitation. "The Executive Committee's proposal for the Boston satellite office expansion. They've requested your review before Monday's presentation." Natasha opened the folder with instinctive executive attention, scanning projected timelines and market analysis before freezing at an unexpected detail. Tech Vision's planned Boston expansion had been in development for months, but the implementation timeline had suddenly accelerated. The strategic initiative now included establishing an innovation center focused on energy efficiency technologies with a proposed launch date just 8 weeks away. She looked up at Mitchell, her expression carefully controlled. "Who authorized the accelerated timeline?" "The executive committee voted yesterday. They were quite enthusiastic about capitalizing on the East Wing project's success." Mitchell's matter-of-fact response carried no awareness of personal implications. After Mitchell departed, Natasha studied the proposal with growing recognition of opportunity beyond business strategy. The Boston expansion created potential alignment between corporate objectives and personal considerations that had seemed irreconcilable days earlier. The Innovation Center would require leadership with precisely David's expertise, creating legitimate professional justification for what had begun to feel like personal motivation. Natasha reached for her phone, then hesitated, recognizing the delicacy of the situation. A direct job offer might appear as corporate counterplay against a competitor rather than genuine opportunity. The personal dimension of their connection required consideration beyond strategic positioning. Instead, she drafted an email requesting a project consultation meeting the following morning, maintaining professional framing while creating opportunity for in-person discussion. David's prompt acceptance carried no indication whether he perceived deeper purpose beyond technical consultation. When he arrived in her office the next day, David's professional composure revealed nothing of his decision process regarding Boston. The careful distance he maintained as they discussed technical specifications suggested deliberate boundary reinforcement rather than continued connection. Natasha allowed their technical discussion to reach natural conclusion before introducing the actual purpose of their meeting. "I've been reviewing the Boston expansion plans." The conversation shifted instantly from abstract specifications to immediately relevant opportunity. David's carefully neutral expression revealed awareness of potential intersection between TechVision's expansion and his own career decision. "I'd heard rumors about a satellite office, but wasn't aware of confirmed plans." His measured response avoided revealing his current thinking about Westbrook's offer. "The executive committee has accelerated the timeline. We're establishing an innovation center focused on energy efficiency technologies." Natasha maintained professional framing while watching for his reaction. That's an ambitious expansion given the current market. David's assessment remained purely business-focused, revealing nothing of personal interest in Boston opportunities. Natasha recognized his careful neutrality and matched it with her own. "We'll need a director with both technical expertise and implementation experience. Someone who understands how conceptual innovation translates to practical application." Her description precisely matched his skill set. Without direct reference. David studied her with quiet assessment, clearly weighing the unspoken dimensions of the conversation. Would this position report directly to Chicago leadership? His question probed organizational positioning rather than expressing direct interest. "Director level with VP potential within 18 months reporting to me until the expansion reaches Phase 2 benchmarks." Natasha's response outlined career advancement opportunities beyond his current trajectory, deliberately excluding explicit mention of his personal considerations. David's measured nod acknowledged the information without revealing his thinking. An interesting development for TechVision's market position. His comment maintained professional distance rather than personal engagement. The silence between them expanded with unaddressed implications. Natasha finally broke it with careful directness. "I'd like you to consider the position, David. Your work on the East Wing project demonstrated exactly the leadership and innovation the center requires." Something shifted in David's expression. Not surprise at the offer, but perhaps at its direct nature after days of careful professional distance. "I appreciate your confidence. The Westbrook opportunity is compelling, but I haven't made my final decision." His acknowledgement of competing options established negotiating position while revealing his continued deliberation. TechVision can match or exceed their compensation package. Natasha's immediate response framed the discussion in conventional business terms, establishing her seriousness while avoiding personal dimensions. David's slight smile suggested recognition of deliberate omission. Compensation is certainly a consideration, but not the only factor. His statement invited acknowledgement of the unaddressed aspects of his potential relocation. Natasha hesitated, then stepped beyond purely professional framing. Emma's educational opportunities would be a priority in the relocation package. Her explicit mention of his daughter acknowledged the personal dimensions they'd carefully circumvented. David's expression revealed surprise at her direct reference, the professional barriers momentarily lowered. "She's been accepted at Brookline Academy, a program for academically gifted children with hands-on engineering focus." His shared detail about Emma signaled willingness to discuss personal considerations alongside professional opportunity. Their conversation gradually evolved beyond organizational charts and compensation structures to include housing considerations, Boston neighborhoods, and Emma's transition requirements. The natural flow between professional and personal topics revealed the multidimensional connection they developed since Christmas Eve, even as both maintained careful boundaries. When David finally left her office an hour later, the situation remained unresolved, his decision still pending, despite TechVision's compelling counteroffer. Natasha found herself in unfamiliar territory. Accustomed to decisive business negotiations rather than complex personal-professional intersections, where outcomes involved emotional considerations beyond strategic positioning. The following week brought increasing pressure from multiple directions. The executive committee pressed for details on Innovation Center leadership, viewing the initiative as TechVision's counter to emerging market competitors. David continued coordinating East Wing system optimization while maintaining careful professional distance in their interactions, his pending decision creating underlying tension neither explicitly acknowledged. On Wednesday afternoon, Mitchell interrupted Natasha's strategic planning session with unusually dramatic entrance. "Mr. Westbrook is in the lobby requesting a few minutes of your time. He's not on the calendar but seems quite determined." Mitchell's raised eyebrows suggested the unusual nature of an unscheduled visit from a competitor's CEO. "Send him up in 10 minutes. Natasha maintained outward calm while internally questioning James Westbrook's unprecedented personal appearance at TechVision headquarters. When Westbrook entered her office, his confident stride and expensive suit projected typical CEO presence, though his expression carried unusual intensity rather than professional courtesy. His direct approach matched his reputation for aggressive business tactics. "I'll be brief, Natasha. We both know why I'm here." Westbrook's dispensing with traditional business pleasantries signaled the personal nature of his visit despite its professional context. Natasha maintained composed neutrality. "Always good to see you, James, though I confess I don't typically expect personal visits from competitors." Her response neither confirmed nor denied knowledge of his purpose. Westbrook's impatient gesture dismissed her careful ambiguity. "David Miller, his technical innovations present significant market opportunities, and we've made him an extremely competitive offer. Her deliberate poaching of your maintenance manager seems beneath your usual strategic approach." His framing of the situation as corporate gamesmanship rather than legitimate opportunity revealed his perspective on David's value, asset rather than individual. Natasha's expression cooled at his characterization. "Mr. Tadam Shesu." Miller's contributions to TechVision have been significant, but his career decisions remain entirely his own. Our interest in his continued professional development reflects appreciation of his talents rather than competitive positioning. Her measured response defended both David's agency and TechVision's legitimate interest while avoiding personal dimensions. Westbrook studied her with calculating assessment. "This seems unusually personal for your typical talent retention approach." His implication carried unstated questions about her interest beyond corporate strategy. The tension between them reflected deeper conflict than mere competition for valuable personnel. Westbrook's appearance in her office represented attempted dominance in a situation where conventional business leverage had proven insufficient, his frustration suggesting David's continued deliberation despite aggressive recruitment tactics. Their tense exchange concluded with superficial professional courtesy, masking mutual awareness that David's decision transcended typical executive poaching. After Westbrook's departure, Natasha remained at her desk, his unexpected visit creating unwelcome recognition that others had begun perceiving personal dimensions in her professional interest, complexities she herself had barely acknowledged. That evening, rather than returning to her penthouse, Natasha found herself driving toward David's apartment building, her unscheduled visit representing departure from careful boundaries they'd maintained since Christmas. The impulse to speak directly without corporate context overrode her typical strategic patience, Westbrook's appearance creating urgency beyond business considerations. She hesitated in the building's modest lobby, questioning the appropriateness of unannounced arrival in his personal space. The decision was rendered moot when the elevator doors opened, revealing David and Emma returning home, grocery bags in hand, an animated conversation in progress. Emma's delighted squeal upon seeing Natasha transformed the awkward moment into genuine connection. "You came to visit us again?" The little girl's excitement carried no awareness of the complex adult dynamics her statement referenced. David's surprise reflected both the unexpected nature of Natasha's appearance and his daughter's unfiltered response. "This is an unexpected pleasure." His careful phrasing acknowledged both Emma's delight and the unusual nature of Natasha's presence outside professional contexts. The ride to their apartment carried Emma's enthusiastic updates about school projects and new engineering adventures, her chatter filling silence that might otherwise have grown awkward between the adults. Inside the apartment, Emma immediately insisted on showing Natasha her workbench, with recent projects arranged in careful display. Natasha found genuine interest in Emma's detailed explanations of disassembled appliances and reconstructed machines, the child's enthusiasm infectious despite the complicated adult situation hovering beyond her awareness. The workbench had evolved since Christmas, expanded with additional tools and now featuring meticulous organization systems reflecting David's influence on her developing methodology. When Emma finally paused for breath, David gently redirected her attention. "Why don't you organize your project notebook while I make dinner? Ms. Reed and I need to discuss some work matters." His phrasing maintained appropriate explanation for his daughter while creating adult conversation space. Emma's disappointed expression quickly transformed to acceptance. "Okay, but you have to stay for dinner. It's taco night, and Daddy makes the best tacos in Chicago." Her absolute certainty brooked no argument. Natasha found herself accepting the dinner invitation with surprising ease despite the professional boundaries being crossed. Once Emma disappeared into her room, the adult tension reemerged as David turned toward Natasha with quiet assessment. "James Westbrook visited your office today?" His statement, rather than question, confirmed communication channels beyond their direct interaction. Natasha nodded, moving toward the kitchen counter as David began dinner preparation. "He seems quite determined to acquire your innovation expertise." Her phrasing deliberately highlighted Westbrook's asset-focused approach. David continued chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. "He's made that clear in our discussions. The compensation package is significant." His understated acknowledgement carried awareness of substantial financial opportunity. Natasha watched his methodical food preparation, the domestic activity creating unusual context for their conversation. "Is compensation the determining factor in your decision?" Her question pushed beyond professional boundaries they'd carefully maintained. David's hands stilled briefly before resuming their rhythm. "It's certainly significant with Emma's future to consider. But no, not the only factor." His admission acknowledged complex considerations beyond financial advancement. The silence between them expanded with unaddressed dimensions until Natasha finally voiced the question beneath their careful professional interactions. "Why did you tell him about our offer?" Her query revealed vulnerability unusual for her executive persona. David's expression reflected surprise at her directness. "I didn't. My decision timeline created negotiating pressure, and Westbrook apparently decided direct intervention might accelerate the process." His explanation carried no indication of using competing offers as leverage tactics. Their conversation paused as Emma returned with project notebooks, her presence creating natural boundary for adult discussion complexity. Dinner preparation became collaborative activity, with Emma directing Natasha in proper taco assembly techniques, with exacting standards reflecting her father's influence on her developing perfectionism. The domestic scene, sharing simple meal preparation in modest kitchen, created dissonance with Natasha's typical evening routine of catered executive dinners or solitary meals in her designer kitchen. Yet the ease of their interaction reflected genuine connection beyond Christmas coincidence or professional collaboration. Only after Emma reluctantly departed for bedtime reading did their conversation resume its earlier seriousness. David's expression carried new resolve as he turned toward Natasha. "Emma's school acceptance at Brookline expires next week. I need to make this decision for her sake more than my own." His statement acknowledged the parental responsibility underlying his professional considerations. Natasha recognized the opportunity for honesty beyond business negotiation. "What would make your decision clearer?" Her question invited factors beyond conventional career considerations. David studied her with careful assessment before responding. "Professional opportunity exists in both positions. The innovation potential seems greater at TechVision given the dedicated center rather than existing department structures." His analysis remained focused on work dimensions rather than personal factors. Natasha maintained his analytical framing while pushing toward deeper considerations. And beyond professional factors, Her question invited acknowledgement of the personal connection they'd established. David's expression revealed internal debate before responding with unexpected directness. Whatever exists between us would eventually encounter significant complications given organizational hierarchy. TechVision's current structure places 17 reporting levels between maintenance management and CEO. Even the innovation director position would report through multiple VP layers. His pragmatic assessment addressed organizational realities they'd temporarily bridge through project collaboration. Natasha absorbed his practical analysis, recognizing truth in structural complications beyond personal connection. The Boston position would report directly to me until the center reaches operational benchmarks. Shorter chain, fewer complications. Her solution offered partial mitigation without addressing fundamental questions about their relationship's nature. David's slight smile acknowledged her tactical approach. Professional reporting structures aren't the only consideration when single parents contemplate major life changes. Emma's stability, community connections, support systems. These factors outweigh career advancement in many respects. His perspective reflected priorities shaped by parental responsibility rather than conventional ambition. As their conversation continued into evening hours, professional discussion gradually yielded to personal considerations beyond organizational charts. David shared Emma's adjustment challenges after her mother's death, the careful balance he maintained between career opportunities and parental responsibilities, and his uncertainty about disrupting her newly established stability with significant relocation. Natasha found herself offering unexpected personal disclosure in return. Her driven career path following her father's abandonment, the gradual isolation that accompanied professional advancement, and recent recognition of success, metrics that excluded meaningful connection. Their exchange created a bridge between professional collaboration and personal understanding that transcended typical executive-employee dynamics. When Natasha finally departed near midnight, their conversation had established new honesty without resolving David's decision. The complexity of their situation acknowledged factors beyond conventional career considerations or corporate strategy. Personal dimensions neither had explicitly defined yet, both recognized as increasingly significant. The following days created increasing pressure as decision deadlines approached from multiple directions. The executive committee pressed for Innovation Center leadership confirmation, while Westbrook continued aggressive recruitment tactics with escalating financial incentives. David maintained professional focus on East Wing system optimization, while clearly wrestling with life-changing decisions beyond TechVision's walls. Their careful professional interactions contained no reference to their evening conversation. Corporate context re-invoking boundaries temporarily lowered in his apartment, yet something had fundamentally shifted between them. Honesty established that couldn't be withdrawn despite resumed professional distance. On Monday morning, David requested a brief meeting through official channels rather than direct communication. The formality suggested decision reached rather than continued deliberation, his careful protocol indicating professional rather than personal context for their interaction. When he entered her office precisely at the scheduled time, his composed expression revealed nothing of his decision process. His opening statement maintained professional framing. "I've reached a decision regarding the competing opportunities." His careful phrasing acknowledged the business dimension without personal reference. Natasha matched his professional approach, executive mask firmly in place, despite internal tension. "I appreciate your thoughtful consideration of TechVision's offer." Her response maintained appropriate distance despite their recent personal conversation. David placed a folder on her desk containing organized documentation. "I've decided to accept the Innovation Director position contingent on several specific terms." His statement confirmed acceptance, while establishing negotiating position rather than simple agreement. The relief that flooded Natasha's system remained carefully contained behind professional composure as she reviewed his proposed terms. Most reflected standard executive package elements, compensation structure, relocation allowance, performance metrics. The final item, however, carried unique specificity beyond conventional negotiations. Direct reporting relationship to CEO for minimum 24 months, with clear succession planning for subsequent organizational integration. Natasha looked up from the document with careful assessment. The reporting structure requirement is unusual for director-level positions. Her statement invited explanation beyond organizational positioning. David met her gaze with quiet confidence. My innovation approach requires decision authority without excessive approval layers. The center's success depends on implementation speed beyond traditional corporate timelines. His explanation offered legitimate business justification while they both recognized underlying personal dimensions. Their negotiation proceeded with professional efficiency despite mutual awareness of unaddressed personal factors influencing the arrangement. By meeting's conclusion, they had established agreement terms that satisfied both corporate requirements and David's specific conditions, creating framework for professional relationship that acknowledged their unusual connection without explicitly defining personal dimensions. As David prepared to leave, Natasha maintained professional framing despite significant shift in their situation. Welcome to the executive team, Director Miller. The formality of her statement carried underlying acknowledgement of boundaries still required despite his acceptance. David's measured response matched her careful balance. Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Reed. His use of her formal address recognized continued professional context despite personal understanding developed between them. Only after he departed did Natasha allow genuine emotion to surface briefly, satisfaction beyond strategic victory or corporate advancement. David's acceptance created legitimate professional context for continued connection while respecting necessary boundaries given their respective positions. The announcement of David's appointment generated predictable corporate ripples. Facilities department concern about losing valuable expertise, executive committee questions about unconventional promotion trajectory, and inevitable organizational speculation about leadership's sudden interest in maintenance management talent. Natasha navigated the political dimensions with practiced executive skill, framing David's appointment within broader innovation strategy rather than isolated personnel decision. His implementation success with the East Wing project provided convenient justification that satisfied most organizational questions while obscuring personal dimensions behind strategic positioning. The transition process accelerated with corporate efficiency once decisions were confirmed. Relocation specialists arranged Boston housing options tailored to David's specifications regarding Emma's school proximity and neighborhood safety. TechVision's legal team finalized his employment contract with careful attention to his specific terms, particularly the direct reporting relationship that bypassed conventional organizational layers. Their professional interactions during transition planning maintained appropriate boundaries despite underlying awareness of personal connection beyond business strategy. Corporate context reinforced necessary distance as David coordinated department handover while simultaneously developing Innovation Center operational frameworks. Only Emma maintained an unfiltered enthusiasm about their evolving situation, her occasional appearances in TechVision's lobby creating brief moments of genuine connection amid corporate complexity. Her excited updates about Boston Research and Engineering Club applications reflected her father's careful preparation for transition while maintaining her characteristic directness unrestrained by adult barriers. 3 weeks before their scheduled Boston relocation, David requested another formal meeting through proper channels. The unusual timing suggested issues beyond routine transition planning, his careful protocol indicating matters requiring official discussion rather than casual conversation. When he arrived at her office, his expression carried tension beyond normal transition stress. I've received another communication from Westbrook Engineering. His statement suggested continued competitive pressure despite his confirmed TechVision commitment. Natasha maintained professional calm despite internal alarm. What are they offering now? Her question assumed financial escalation rather than alternative approach. David handed her an official-looking document rather than verbal explanation. It's not an improved offer. It's a cease and desist letter regarding my energy recapture system. His measured tone contrasted with the serious legal implications. Natasha scanned the document with growing concern. Westbrook Engineering claimed prior patent application for substantially similar technology developed under their research division, threatening litigation against both David personally and any corporate entity implementing his system. The legal threat created multiple complications beyond typical competitive maneuvering. TechVision's Innovation Center strategy centered specifically around David's technology fund with significant investment already committed to implementation infrastructure. More concerning was potential personal liability for David if Westbrook pursued aggressive litigation. Natasha maintained outward composure while internally assessing strategic options. I'll have legal review this immediately. These tactics seem suspiciously timed given your declined offer. Her analysis suggested retaliatory motivation rather than legitimate intellectual property protection. David's expression revealed complicated emotions beyond professional concern. Emma's future depends on this position if there's legitimate patent conflict. His unfinished statement acknowledged personal vulnerability beyond corporate implications. The situation created new dimensions in their relationship as Natasha found herself unexpectedly protective beyond business considerations. Westbrook's targeting of David personally rather than simply challenging corporate implementation revealed vindictive approach, potentially threatening his family's stability beyond professional opportunity. Natasha's response carried certainty beyond typical business assurance. We'll resolve this, David. TechVision stands behind our commitments, both to your innovation and your position. Her statement pledged support extending beyond conventional employer-employee protection. The following days transformed into intensive legal investigation as TechVision's attorneys analyzed Westbrook's claims, while patent specialists examined application timelines and technology specifications. David provided exhaustive documentation of his development process, including dated notebooks and prototype testing records, establishing clear innovation chronology. Preliminary legal assessments suggested Westbrook's claim represented deliberate intimidation rather than legitimate intellectual property dispute. Their patent application had been filed 3 weeks after David declined their employment offer, with technology descriptions suspiciously similar to details shared during recruitment discussions. Despite favorable initial analysis, the situation created genuine threat to Innovation Center, timeline, and David's relocation plans. Legal resolution could require months even, with compelling evidence of Westbrook's tactical motivation potentially delaying implementation, while Emma's school acceptance deadline approached inexorably. The conflict created new pressure in Natasha's carefully structured professional life. Beyond business implications for TechVision's strategic initiative, she found herself increasingly concerned about personal consequences for David and Emma should legal complications disrupt their carefully planned transition. On Thursday afternoon, Mitchell interrupted Natasha's strategic planning session with unusual urgency. James Westbrook is requesting another meeting. He's downstairs and quite insistent. Mitchell's expression suggested the competitor's demeanor exceeded typical business assertiveness. Send him up. Natasha's immediate response revealed readiness for confrontation rather than strategic avoidance. When Westbrook entered her office minutes later, his typical confident manner had intensified into barely restrained aggression. His opening statement dispensed with business pleasantries. Your legal department seems remarkably unresponsive to legitimate intellectual property concerns. His framing attempted to establish legal righteousness despite tactical motivation. Natasha maintained composed professionalism despite internal recognition of Westbrook's manipulative approach. Our attorneys are conducting appropriate due diligence regarding your claims, James. Preliminary assessment suggests interesting timing correlation between your patent application and Mr. Miller's declined employment offer. Her response challenged his legal positioning while suggesting awareness of retaliatory motivation. Westbrook's expression hardened at her implied accusation. The technology belongs to Westbrook Engineering, regardless of development timeline. We're prepared for extended litigation if necessary. His threat carried calculated awareness of delay implications beyond legal outcomes. The confrontation revealed Westbrook's actual strategy, leveraging legal complexity to disrupt implementation timeline, regardless of eventual resolution. The approach targeted both TechVision's strategic initiative and David's personal transition, creating maximum pressure through deliberate complication rather than legitimate intellectual property protection. Natasha recognized the tactical nature of his approach while maintaining outward calm. Litigation certainly remains an option, though public exploration of your recruitment techniques and subsequent patent application timing might prove interesting beyond legal circles. Her counter-threat suggested potential reputation damage beyond courtroom consequences. Their exchange continued with escalating tension beneath maintained professional facades, corporate language masking personal motivations on both sides. Westbrook's approach revealed vindictive determination to punish David's declined offer, regardless of collateral damage to his family's stability. After Westbrook finally departed with unresolved threats hanging between them, Natasha remained at her desk, contemplating strategic options beyond conventional corporate response. The situation had evolved beyond business competition into personal attack against someone she increasingly recognized as important beyond professional collaboration. That evening, rather than returning to her penthouse, Natasha directed her driver to David's apartment building. The unscheduled visit represented deliberate boundary crossing, personal connection, superseding professional protocol, given the situation's implications for his family's stability. David's surprised expression upon opening his door reflected both the unexpected nature of her arrival and recognition of unusual urgency beneath her composed exterior. When he invited her inside the apartment, revealed organized packing preparation, partially filled boxes and sorted belongings indicating transition already underway, despite looming legal complications. Emma's excited greeting from amid packing materials temporarily lightened the atmosphere before David gently directed her toward bedroom activities, creating adult conversation space amid transition chaos. Once alone, their exchange dispensed with professional pretense, addressing Westbrook's threats with direct personal assessment rather than corporate positioning. I reviewed the complete legal analysis this afternoon. Westbrook's claim has minimal legitimate standing, but could create significant implementation delays through procedural complications. Natasha's assessment acknowledged the tactical rather than substantive nature of the threat. David's expression revealed parental concern beyond professional implications. Emma's school deposit deadline is next Wednesday. If we postpone the move and lose her placement, his unfinished statement acknowledged the personal stakes transcending corporate strategy. Their conversation evolved beyond conventional employer-employee dynamics as they considered options ranging from accelerated relocation, ahead of legal resolution, to modified implementation timeline, separating David's transition from technology deployment. The ease of their collaborative problem-solving reflected genuine partnership, transcending organizational hierarchy, with Emma's stability receiving priority alongside business considerations. As their discussion continued into evening hours, the modest apartment with its half-packed belongings created context fundamentally different from corporate meeting rooms. The visible evidence of impending life transition, Emma's carefully labeled toy boxes and David's organized household systems, highlighted personal dimensions beyond strategic business initiatives. Their evolving connection found expression through practical problem-solving rather than explicit emotional discussion, addressing concrete challenges while acknowledging the relationship's unusual nature through collaborative approach rather than hierarchical direction. When Natasha finally departed near midnight, they had established modified transition plan, prioritizing Emma's educational opportunity while creating flexible implementation timeline for the Innovation Center. The following morning brought unexpected development when Mitchell entered Natasha's office with unusual excitement. The patent office responded to our priority review request regarding Miller's energy system. They've confirmed his application predates Westbrook's by over 14 months, with sufficient technical differentiation to render interference claims invalid. Mitchell's information transformed the conflict's trajectory beyond anticipated legal complexity. The patent confirmation created immediate strategic advantage in their conflict with Westbrook, providing indisputable timeline evidence, rendering his claims transparently retaliatory rather than legitimate intellectual property protection. More importantly for David's situation, the official determination removed potential legal barriers to his innovation implementation and family transition. Natasha immediately contacted David through their newly established direct communication rather than corporate channels. When he answered her statement, dispensed with professional protocol in favor of immediate relief. The patent office confirmed your priority claim. Westbrook's challenge has zero legitimate standing. The rapid sharing of positive development reflected personal investment beyond business implications. The changed circumstances accelerated transition plans with renewed corporate efficiency. Legal department prepared comprehensive response to Westbrook's threats, leveraging patent office determination and suggesting potential counterclaims regarding anti-competitive practices. Innovation Center implementation timeline resumed original schedule with David's relocation arrangements proceeding without further complication. 2 weeks later, Natasha found herself standing in Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood outside a newly renovated brownstone that would become David and Emma's home. The property combined historic exterior with modernized interior featuring dedicated workspace for David's continued innovation development and carefully designed project area for Emma's expanding engineering interests. David appeared momentarily surprised when Natasha arrived for the scheduled walk through their Boston interaction, representing new phase in their evolving relationship. While Emma raced through rooms claiming spaces and planning modifications, the adults conducted practical inspection with comfortable familiarity, transcending their former hierarchical distance. The Boston property represented physical manifestation of transition, extending beyond geographic relocation. Its careful selection reflected priorities balancing professional opportunity with family stability. Proximity to Emma's new school dedicated innovation space for continued development and neighborhood community, supporting single-parent needs beyond career advancement. As they completed the official inspection, David's expression carried contemplative assessment beyond property consideration. This represents significant change from maintenance manager housing 18 months ago. His statement acknowledged transformation extending beyond professional advancement. Natasha matched his reflective tone while maintaining practical focus. The Innovation Center's success justifies appropriate leadership investment. Her response framed personal interest within legitimate business context, while they both recognized dimensions extending beyond corporate strategy. Emma's excited interruption prevented further adult conversation as she detailed elaborate plans for her dedicated project space, her enthusiasm creating natural bridge between professional opportunity and family considerations. Her unconscious integration of these supposedly separate domains reflected wisdom adults often struggled to maintain amid organizational complexities. Later that afternoon, as Natasha prepared to return to Chicago, their conversation briefly addressed the personal dimensions underlying professional transitions. David's measured statement acknowledged their unusual journey without presumption. I appreciate everything you've done to make this opportunity possible, both professionally and personally. His careful phrasing recognized multiple dimensions without explicitly defining their relationship's nature. Natasha matched his balanced approach with her own acknowledgement. Some innovations extend beyond technological systems to include human connections. Her response offered metaphorical recognition while maintaining appropriate boundaries given their continuing professional relationship. Their parting maintained careful equilibrium between personal connection and professional context, acknowledging evolved relationship without explicit definition beyond current parameters. The Boston transition created geographic separation that paradoxically simplified their interaction by removing daily hierarchical complications while establishing direct reporting relationship justifying regular communication. 6 months later, Natasha stood in the newly completed Innovation Center amid gleaming equipment and bustling engineering teams. The facility had transformed from strategic concept to operational reality with remarkable efficiency under David's leadership. His practical implementation skills, accelerating timelines beyond typical corporate development cycles. The center's central demonstration area featured the energy recapture system now installed throughout the facility, generating operational data exceeding projected efficiency metrics. Technical teams from multiple industry sectors regularly toured the implementation, creating expanding market opportunities beyond TechVision's internal applications. David's leadership style had evolved to incorporate executive dimensions while maintaining his practical engineering perspective, creating distinctive approach that balanced innovative thinking with implementation realities. His team combined academic research expertise with commercial application experience, reflecting his recognition that theoretical advancement required practical translation to create meaningful impact. As Natasha observed operational progress during quarterly review visits, the personal dimension of their connection continued developing alongside professional collaboration. Monthly leadership meetings provided legitimate context for regular interaction, while Emma's occasional appearance during school holidays maintained family connection beyond business parameters. Their relationship established unusual balance between professional boundaries and personal understanding, neither fully defined nor completely constrained by conventional expectations. The geographic separation created natural space that paradoxically strengthened their connection through deliberate rather than circumstantial interaction. On a crisp October morning 1 year after their Christmas encounter, Natasha found herself once again at the Boston Brownstone for the Innovation Center's formal launch ceremony. The official event would bring industry leaders and media coverage, celebrating the facility's successful implementation and expanding market influence. Emma greeted her arrival with characteristic enthusiasm, unrestrained by adult social boundaries. She proudly displayed her latest engineering project, a scale model of the energy recapture system adapted for residential application that she intended to enter in her school's innovation competition. The transformation in the young girl reflected more than typical developmental progress. Her technical vocabulary and systematic approach demonstrated educational advancement beyond age-typical patterns, while her confidence navigating adult professional contexts revealed secure foundation despite major life transitions. As David joined them, his expression carried quiet pride, it extending beyond professional accomplishment to encompass family stability amid significant changes. The past year had established new patterns balancing career advancement with parental priorities. His leadership role structured specifically to accommodate Emma's schedule while maintaining innovation momentum. Their conversation flowed easily between professional assessment and personal connection, the boundaries between domains increasingly permeable without sacrificing appropriate distinctions. When Emma departed to prepare her presentation materials for the ceremony, David turned toward Natasha with reflective assessment. This past year has defied conventional metrics in unexpected ways. His statement acknowledged transformation extending beyond professional advancement or corporate strategy. Natasha matched his contemplative tone. Some investments yield returns that spreadsheets can't capture. Her response recognized value beyond business calculations while maintaining metaphorical framing appropriate to their evolving relationship. When they finally departed for the official ceremony, their easy companionship reflected journey from hierarchical distance to genuine partnership transcending organizational positions. The Innovation Center represented physical manifestation of possibilities beyond conventional structures. Both technological systems and human connections reconfigured to capture previously wasted energy. The launch event proceeded with corporate precision. Official speeches acknowledging strategic vision, technical presentations, demonstrating implementation success, and media opportunities highlighting market implications. Throughout the carefully orchestrated proceedings, the genuine accomplishment beneath corporate messaging remained evident in operational realities rather than promotional language. As the ceremony concluded with official ribbon cutting, Emma proudly stood alongside her father at the center's main entrance, her presence representing family dimension beyond corporate achievement. The assembled crowd's applause acknowledged both technological innovation and the human story behind its development. Transformation extending beyond energy systems to include personal connection, once constrained by hierarchy and circumstance. Later that evening, a celebration transitioned from official proceedings to informal gathering. Natasha found herself on the brownstone's small rooftop garden, with David the Boston skyline illuminated against darkening autumn sky. Their conversation had evolved beyond implementation metrics to broader reflections on the year's unexpected journey, from Christmas coincidence to deliberate connection. David's expression carried contemplative assessment beyond professional satisfaction. Emma asked me something interesting this morning. His statement invited shared perspective rather than corporate discussion. Natasha recognized the shift toward personal territory with comfortable acceptance rather than professional caution. What wisdom did our young engineer offer today? Her question acknowledged the child's surprising insight that frequently transcended adult complexity. David's slight smile reflected parental pride beyond specific achievement. She asked when you were going to become part of our family, officially since you already act like it. His sharing of Emma's direct question invited response without presumption or pressure. The moment carried potential complication, given their continuing professional connection, despite evolved personal relationship. Natasha's response acknowledged complexity while offering genuine perspective. Family takes many forms beyond conventional definitions. What we've built this past year doesn't require official designation to have genuine meaning. Her statement recognized authentic connection without artificial acceleration or institutional framing. Their conversation continued with unusual honesty about relationship possibilities beyond traditional patterns, addressing practical considerations alongside emotional dimensions with characteristic balanced assessment. The discussion reflected their established approach, navigating complexity through thoughtful evaluation rather than impulsive reaction, whether engineering challenges or personal connection. As evening deepened around them, their comfortable silence reflected journey beyond unexpected Christmas encounter to deliberate relationship transcending conventional boundaries. The Innovation Center below, represented visible manifestation of possibilities beyond traditional structures. Energy systems reconfigured to capture previously wasted potential human connections recalibrated to recognize value beyond hierarchical constraints. David finally broke the contemplative quiet with characteristic practical focus. Emma's school has parent-teacher conferences next month. They recommend both parents attend when possible. His statement offered specific invitation within established parameters rather than abstract relationship definition. Natasha's response carried acceptance beyond professional collaboration. I'll adjust my calendar to be there. Her simple commitment acknowledged evolving role without requiring explicit designation. Their conversation expanded to include practical planning for coming months, innovation center development phases, Emma's school activities, and gradually integrating their separate lives into increasingly connected pattern. The rooftop discussion reflected their established approach to complexity, addressing possibilities through thoughtful consideration rather than predefined expectations. As Natasha later prepared to return to Chicago, their parting carried new understanding beyond temporary separation. The distance between Boston and Chicago had transformed from potential obstacle to practical arrangement, accommodating both professional responsibilities and personal connection, geographic separation creating beneficial space rather than problematic barrier. 6 months later, on Christmas Eve, Natasha once again found herself in Chicago's downtown district amid holiday decorations and last-minute shoppers. Unlike the previous year's solitary wandering, however, her purposeful stride carried anticipation rather than empty obligation. The familiar diner on the corner remained largely unchanged, holiday decorations slightly faded from previous incarnations, but creating similar warm glow against winter darkness. Inside, rather than nearly empty establishment, she found David and Emma waiting at a specifically requested booth by the window. Emma's excited greeting carried no awareness of the location's significance beyond immediate celebration. I saved you the best seat, the place where you can see all the Christmas lights outside. Her arrangement reflected characteristic thoughtfulness beneath childish enthusiasm. As Natasha settled into the booth opposite them, David's expression acknowledged the deliberate anniversary beyond coincidental timing. His quiet statement carried meaning beyond simple observation, full circle in unexpected ways. His reference recognized their journey from accidental encounter to intentional connection. The holiday scene around them, modest diner with slightly tacky decorations, simple food served on mismatched dishes, families gathering in unpretentious celebration, carried different significance than the previous year's random intersection. What had once represented chance encounter amid separate lives had transformed into deliberate choice among expanding possibilities. As they shared holiday plans extending beyond Christmas Eve to include coming months of increasingly integrated activities, their conversation reflected balanced approach to evolving relationship, neither rushing artificial definitions nor avoiding meaningful connection, instead building deliberate patterns reflecting genuine understanding beyond conventional expectations. Emma's excited interruption of adult conversation carried childish directness, transcending social boundaries. I have a new invention idea. We could make buildings that share energy instead of wasting it, like how families share things instead of everyone having their own. Her technical concept unconsciously mirrored human connection principles, with characteristic integration of seemingly separate domains. David's proud response acknowledged both the technical concept and its broader implications. That's exactly what innovation should accomplish, finding connection points that transform waste into shared resources. His explanation carried meaning beyond engineering specifications. As their Christmas Eve unfolded with deliberate celebration rather than accidental intersection, the contrast with previous year highlighted transformation extending beyond professional advancement or geographic relocation. What had begun through coincidence had evolved through conscious choice, creating possibilities neither could have anticipated amid holiday isolation 12 months earlier. Their shared laughter amid simple celebration reflected journey beyond conventional metrics, success measured not through corporate advancement alone, but through meaningful connection, transcending organizational hierarchy, innovation extending beyond technological systems to include human relationship reconfigured to capture previously wasted potential. When they finally left the diner hours later, they stepped into gently falling snow, reminiscent of their first encounter, the familiar weather pattern now framing deliberate connection rather than random intersection. Their future paths remained unwritten, but intentionally aligned possibility, extending beyond traditional definitions toward authentic partnership based in mutual recognition rather than prescribed expectations.